build animation. Okay, so blah, blah. Thank you so much. I'm sorry that I'll be doing this in English. If I did in French, it would be a lot worse for you, so I promise. I can read, I can somewhat understand, but speaking is you would not be happy about that one. So thanks for having me here today. And I'm really excited to talk a little bit about measuring and growing. How do we know how Agile's doing? So we were talking earlier, we had some transformation about various transformation in different companies. But how do we measure it? How do we know if we're doing Agile well, if we're not doing Agile well? How do we know if we're getting the results we want? So that's what I want to talk about. I'll shortly introduce myself. My name is Inbar. I come from the tech world. I've been a developer, I've been a team leader, I've been a project manager, I've been an architect. I've gone through kind of all these roles, in definitely in a pre-Agile world, in small companies, in large companies. And then about 20 years ago, I was working for a company, and the VP of engineering had an idea. He came and said, we're going to do Agile. I had no idea what Agile was. So I went and read about it, and it seemed completely stupid. And I said, why are we doing this? And he said, oh, it's going to be awesome. I was very skeptical. And I said, okay, you're the boss. We do whatever you want. He said, no, but I need you to lead this. I need you to be the Scrum Master for 3 teams. And I said, what's a Scrum Master? You'll figure it out. And so we figured it out. And it really changed the company. It made us successful. It made us more responsive to our customers. It really changed how we worked. So when I left that company, I said, I want to help others do the same thing. So I started working with companies all over the world, helping them move to agility and trying to think about how do we make and drive better results. And then they started asking me, well, how do I do it at scale? Okay, 1 team, 2 teams, 3 teams, but what do I do when it's 20 teams or 200 teams? What do I do when I have a lot of dependencies and I'm building something big like a car or an airplane? How do I do that? And I started having some ideas, but they were half-formed. And that's when I heard about SAFe. SAFe was just starting out. Dean, the creator of SAFe, was starting to teach. And I went to one of his classes. And it really intrigued me. He had some ideas there that I thought were interesting. He had some ideas that I was like, that's never going to work. But I decided I want to try them. So I tried them and I did with my customers, and it made a huge change. And I worked with, again, customers all over the globe to test these ideas, and it was really transformative. So then I started working for Scaled Agile, helping evolve SAFe through versions 4, 5, 6, 5, 5.1. So everything we've done so far. And I'm a SAFe fellow and the chief product officer of the company. So really trying to work on how do we evolve it to the next level. When I don't do this, I do that. Martial arts. This one's called Judo. I used to study a lot in France, which is how I actually even understand a little bit of France, because my teacher used to be from France. And because it's about scale, and we do everything at scale, then I do everything at scale. So I also do family at scale. I have 5 kids with 2 sets of twins, which means right now I'm here and somebody's out there being very unhappy with me. So this evening I'm going to have to pay for that. So let's talk a little bit about what we're all faced. The world is changing. That's just a reality. With digital transformation hitting everything we do. And it really doesn't matter who I talk to. 2 weeks ago, I was doing a tour of some companies, and I met with people who are building automotive, cars. Do you know how many lines of code are in a car? Millions? It's hundreds of millions. And they were forecasting that within a few years, it's going to be over 1 billion lines of code in a car. So I'm talking to an insurance company, and they're starting to figure out that software is not something that, yeah, we have this IT department that's a cost center on the side, and we can try to ignore or try to kind of pay them attention. It's a necessary evil to this is our core competency. We are no longer just an insurance company. We are a software company that's delivering an insurance product. And if we don't learn how to make software into a core competency, we're going to fail. Because other companies who are very good at this are going to come and eat our lunch. They're going to come and they're going to do it better than us. And we're seeing this in all the disruption. I was at an automotive conference 2 weeks ago. Which company was everybody talking about? What company do you think everybody was talking about? Tesla. Because it's still, I mean, if you look at the amount of cars they're selling to somebody else, they're not selling even close to the traditional companies. But they're starting to be scared because they are selling a lot. And in the initial beginning, people were laughing at them. Oh, they're making promises, but they're not really delivering. But now they're delivering. And so suddenly they're doing things that start to scare the other companies, and they're all talking about it. So if you were not going to be good at this, somebody else will. And then AI is coming on, and machine learning, and big data, changing everything that we can do to be completely different. A few years ago, there was a hurricane in Florida, and people were trying to get away, and Tesla deployed an over-the-air update that extended the range of cars. I mean, it seems impossible you extend the range of cars with an over-the-air update of a software. A few years ago, you bought the car, and that's it. If something's not working, buy a new car. No, now we'll upgrade your car for you. It knows how to do some things, and it will know how to do more. And artificial intelligence introduces completely new possibilities. And our customers are starting to demand this. They're seeing what they can do in other places, and they're asking, well, why can't I do it in my bank? Why can't I do it in my insurance product? One of the companies I was visiting 3 weeks ago, she said that as far as she's concerned, their people, when they're at home, they're in the 21st century, and they're watching Netflix, and they're on their phone, and then they step into the office, turn the computer on, and they're back in the 20th century. It's all outdated software. It's all bad. And they're like, I'm not willing to stand for that. I'm used to something else. If you don't give me what I want, I'm going to go somewhere else. And I don't just want it, I want it now. Because I'm expecting it to be really fast, because other people are giving me things fast. Why can't you give it fast? So this world is really changing. And in this changing world, the way we've always done our projects, we'll go and we'll run a funding. We'll have a long term where we go through a long 3 months, 4 months, 6 months funding time, and then we'll decide on a project, and then we'll establish the requirements, and then we'll establish the design, and then we'll write the code, and then we'll test it, and then who knows if it's good or bad, but it's going to take so long by that time that probably things have already changed. It doesn't work anymore. Scaled Agile, our business is built on courses. People going out there to other people, sitting in a classroom and teaching courses, face to face. What do you think happened to our business in March 2020? Imagine our income graph. What do you think it looked like? Yeah. Now, the question right there was, can we adapt our strategy to something different? Now, we're a small company. Sure, we did. We adapted. We released new ways of teaching remotely, and we were out of it. But we could clearly see the differentiation between companies who had no agility at all, company who had technical agility. They could actually change what the teams were building, but had no strategy agility. They couldn't change the customer strategy. And company who actually had business agility. They had the ability to really change what they're doing, identify an opportunity in the market, find something small to build, that minimal viable product, connect to our customers and make sure that we're building the right thing, build it quickly, validate it. If not, change direction, say, we're just going somewhere else that didn't work, we're going to do something else. Then, if it's working, keep building it really, really quickly, and learn continuously, and all that in short cycles. That's a challenge. And we're going to have a talk later about value stream mapping. Well, this is a value stream. The ability to really innovate and change your strategy on demand. Can we do it? If we can really quickly identify a change in the market, react to it, innovate, get something in front of customers, validate that it's working or not, change direction, validate something new, get it out there in the market, and by the time the customers, when it's still relevant for when the customers need it, then we're doing well. And if we can't, then we're not. Now, this isn't easy. This isn't a, well, 5 minutes later and I have business agility. It's a journey. It's not a destination. It's not a, okay, we're now doing this. And a lot of people are confusing this. And I know I come from the company that created SAFe. But people are thinking, well, my goal is to do SAFe. No. That's not the goal. The goal, if there is a goal, is to have a journey towards business agility. Are you actually able to deliver the things your customer needs when they need them, and then make the changes as they're needed? Just saying that I've launched 4 trains. Well, that's a fact. You've launched 4 trains. Do you see changes in your business? Is it delivering the results you needed? If it's not, then you've launched 4 trains. If you are, then you're seeing that you truly have something out of it. So how do I know this? How do I measure, and then if I'm not doing so well, improve on how I'm doing towards business agility? So we're going to talk about 3 things that we think are important to measure as you're thinking through business agility. The first one I'm going to talk about is competency. That's maybe the most basic one. We're going to talk about the different parts that lead up to business agility, and then we're going to talk about when and how I measure myself and improve my ability to do the practices. And the practices are important. They lead me where I want to go. Then we're going to talk about flow. Am I actually delivering value faster? Am I delivering the right value? Am I focusing on the right things? Am I shortening time to market? And then finally, we're going to talk about outcomes, because outcomes are really important. I know a lot of companies that have shortened the development cycle, but are not delivering the right things. And let me ask you a question. What percentage of features in software actually get used? 20, 30, 8? Nobody's giving high numbers, but let's say, just for the sake of argument, it's 50%. Because you're working with some great customers, representing some amazing companies out there, 50% of features get used. So that means 2 things. First, you probably see a lot of requests to remove unused features, right? Do you see a lot of requests to remove unused features? No. The other thing is, let's say we can move faster, but we're building the wrong things. So what does that mean? We're building more wrong things, but faster. That's not what we're trying to do. So we're going to finish by talking about outcomes, because that's important. Just shortening time to market, but bringing the wrong things to market, that's not the impact we're trying to do. So we have to combine all 3 of them in order to see that we're improving. Let's start by talking about competency. So competency is, how well are we actually at doing the practices that we think are going to get us to agility? And in SAFe, we have a specific outlook on this. We have the core competencies of business agility that we've identified by talking to a lot of companies and talking about what do people have to be good at to achieve business agility. And if I go back to this value stream, if I want to be able to sense opportunities quickly, I need strategy agility. That's part of what we call organizational agility. Funding MVPs, I need the ability to have the right kind of portfolio funding and the right kind of portfolio conversation. That requires a lean portfolio management. Organizing around value, connecting to customers, agile product delivery. How do we know, recognize what the customers want? So we've identified these 7 core competencies that we believe represent the practices that allow you to achieve business agility. Now remember, they allow you to achieve business agility. They're still not the goal. They are just a good metrics to see that you're going in the right direction. But you still have to measure, are you actually achieving the results? So let's look at a few times where you could think about those business agility assessments, and then we'll talk a little bit about how would you know what to improve if you're seeing some problems. So this is our implementation roadmap. When you're starting SAFe, and I'm guessing at least some of you have seen this, this is kind of we're doing something, maybe some ad hoc agile, maybe we're doing waterfall, all the way through we're accelerating toward business agility. So what are some of the places where we would want to assess how well we're doing on the practices side? So let's start with the first one, scenario number 1. We want to create a baseline. So we're starting out. And a lot of places I talk to say we want to improve something. They will say that as they're going to SAFe, let's say, they want to improve something. We want to have a faster time to market. And I will ask, what's the current time to market? We don't know. How do I know if we're getting better? So setting a baseline of understanding where we are and where our challenges are is really important. So really going through the business agility assessment with the portfolio that we're trying to transform to really try to understand what are the problems. Try to identify where are we struggling right now. So maybe as a company, we're actually starting in a place where we're doing pretty well with technical agility. The teams are working very well, they're applying Scrum or Kanban, and they're doing very well on this. Maybe the real challenge right now is coordination between teams. Maybe even that's working pretty well, and the challenge is the way we're funding. Maybe the challenge is leadership. And that's a common pattern, by the way, that people come and start a transformation, and they would say, the leaders in the organization would say, we're not working really well, meaning they are not working really well. And we need to change, meaning they need to change. But if the organization isn't working well enough or agile enough, it's probably a leader's responsibility to change their behavior as well. So sometimes when you're setting up the baseline, you're seeing that there's a problem with the way we lead. And if we sit together as a leadership team and we really do it collaboratively, and we really set this up, we're getting to a point where we can recognize we're lacking something. Something isn't working the right way. Something isn't progressing the way we need it to. And that's a good place to start. At least we know where we are. We're doing well in one places. We're doing somewhere not well in some other place. But at least we know where we are. And then we kind of embark on that journey. So we set that baseline. And now we're trying to follow some places in order to understand where should we improve. And that depends a little bit of where we saw the problem. So for example, maybe we're now focusing on launching our first arts. Or maybe we're focusing on starting a portfolio. And that depends on where we see the problem. If our problem is that we don't have any agility, we'll probably have to start here. If the problem is we can't react at strategic level, or we're overloading people so much that they just don't know what to do with what they have. We have a board of all the initiatives we have to run in this company, and there's 350 initiatives, all equally important, all super critical. We can't do all of them. Well, we have to, okay? But we have agile teams. What should they prioritize? They have to work on all of it. So there's a problem at the portfolio level. Maybe that's somewhere to start. Now, as we get started, we have to start asking ourselves and dive deeper. Because, okay, we're seeing that there might be some trouble, but then we have to start seeing where the problem are deeper. So now we can't just say, okay, from a business agility perspective, now we have to go into each one of those competencies. And there are specific assessments in SAFe for each one of them. So for example, if I want to know how well my train that I just launched is doing, I have the Agile product delivery side, I have the team and technical agility side to really try to see, have we set up the teams correctly? Are they succeeding? Do they even have the right roles? Do they have the right people? And sometimes, I mean, it depends on what I'm supposed to have. The last presentation was talking about adding a new role for the release quality manager. Well, if I need to have that, then but do I have that? We have that on a slide, but let's say 3 of our trains don't actually have one. Well, that's a problem. I would consider that we probably have a problem if we decided that that's something that's critical for our implementation. If we decide that we have to have a Agile servant leader, then do we have one? Well, we do. But they are shared across 6 teams. And do we actually have an Agile servant leader? We have an Agile servant leader, but it's 10% of their role because they're actually a developer that is an Agile servant leader when they have the time. Okay, are they being effective? I don't know. Let's look at the rest of the assessment and ask ourselves, are we achieving the results we want? Is the team improving? Yes. Okay. No, it's not. Okay. Then let's dig in and try to understand some of those issues of what we're doing. But again, we're focusing on what we're trying to see, on the behaviors we're trying to achieve. So, is the team continuously improving? Are they delivering value continuously? If not, then we have some deep issues here in the team and technical agility. On the other hand, if the team is performing very well, but every time we show it to customers, the customer is saying, that's not what I wanted, then we have a problem probably with Agile product delivery side. DevOps. How well are we getting this? Again, I'm looking forward to the next presentation about value stream mapping, and we're going to see some more about that in a second. But how well are we actually delivering our value? Where's the waste in the process? So really going through that is critical. Then we need to identify some more opportunities to change. So now we've launched a few trains. We're trying to understand, what about the coordination between the trains? Are they working well? Did we build the trains well? Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. A lot of organizations spend time really thinking through the trains, and then they're done. That makes no sense. As the business change, as the strategy evolved, the structure of the trains should also evolve. And then they're solving it by saying, well, we didn't build the trains correctly, but we will build a large solution. There's a large solution safe. About coordination, we're a large company, so obviously we need a large solution. I was visiting an aerospace company a few years back, and they were just launched their large solution, which was really interesting to watch. And then I sat with them, and I looked at the structure, and I asked, what if you build the trains this way? And I suggested a different structure. And they said, oh, then we would have no dependencies and we would need a large solution. And I said, then why not do that? Well, we're a big company. Don't we have to have a large solution? No. You have to have it if you have to have it. But it's not a point to have that. So really going through this and understanding, are we solving the right problem? Are we scaling the things we're building? And then it gets to the portfolio. And again, we have a specific assessment for the portfolio. Asking ourselves, how are we budgeting? How are we funding? What are we funding? We're funding projects for a year. Well, then it's probably hard to change direction. There's a whole problem, which we're not going to go into right now, but we can talk about it when we talk about LPM. There's a big problem with project-based funding that leads people down the wrong track of trying to say, I've funded a project, and then it's running behind. So now instead of talking, but are we still doing the most important thing for the customer, we're starting to have the conversation of, why did we fail in our assessment, or how can we get more money, and then we start losing people, and eventually the whole project spins out of control, instead of deliver value continuously to customers. So the whole funding model can really shape things and make things possible. Or where the KPIs we're tracking require people to work in waterfall. It really requires that. So the way we're measuring prohibits us from working in an agile way. Do we have such measurements? And then leadership. Are people leading by example? What's the culture of the company? In a lot of companies that I work with, there's a big culture of fear. That's going to be problematic. And again, I I didn't understand fully everything that was spoken in the presentation, so I'm sorry, I'm calling things out. But I saw the slide there of the Agile transformation from 2018 to 2023. Okay, what happens at 2024? I'm guessing there will still be work to do. The reason we have a Lean Agile Center for Excellence is because you're never done. It's a journey, not a destination. You might launch all the trains by 2023, but are they actually agile? Are they thinking in agile? If we stop coaching them tomorrow morning, are they going to just go back to what they used to do? Or is it now a new part of the culture? Are the leaders thinking in that way? So that's a really complex thing that we have to look at as we're advancing. And then we're kind of getting to this point that's called accelerating towards business agility. That's where we have to do it again and again and again. Run the entire business agility assessment and then dive deeper into specific places. And understanding that as we're changing our trains, changing our portfolios, changing our value streams, it doesn't stay static. We had a train that was very well performing, but now we've changed its structure. Maybe it slid back. We were really focused on one aspect of the business and we brought a lot of really good coaches who helped drive this, but then we wanted to extend this to more parts of the business and other parts started sliding back. So we have to be very cognizant of that. Just because we said that one art it's great, let's move somewhere else, doesn't mean it will stay great. It doesn't mean it's handling the new challenges that are coming up. So keep asking yourself, are we good at the practices? But saying, okay, let's do an assessment and find that we're not very good at, team and technical agility. That's great, but that's not the point. The point is not just saying we're not good at something, it's how do we get better? That's why it's measure and grow, not just measure for measurement's sake. So we introduced a whole section of what we call growth recommendations. If I have a specific problem, what should I do? And it might be run a workshop with your team. It might be take a course. It might be read a book. It might be a lot of things that are doing this. And we've worked with two companies, two of our partners, Agility Health and Comparative Agility. They've actually implemented all those into their tools. So if you're, I'm guessing at least some of your SPCs, you have access to these tools. You can run these assessments with your customers and you can really help them try to understand exactly what should we do and have specific cases. Because again, the goal is not just to measure and say, I'm a 3. Okay. And what do I need to do now? Based on where I am. What's the most important thing that I need to work on as a company? So really taking those things, and I started seeing people running assessments just to have a number. But having an assessment without actually talking about what's the action plan, and then prioritizing them, and then putting that in our transformation backlog so we actually do it, it's not helpful. So that's the competency side. Then there's the flow side. And I think that's a side that we haven't been putting enough attention on. All of us in our transformation, in our work, we haven't put enough focus on. We're focusing on running a good PI planning event, or doing a good iteration retrospective, or even budgeting in a specific way. But we're not focusing enough on how is value flowing to our customers. And there are a few things we need to measure as far as flow is concerned. It's not a one thing. So, for example, flow velocity. So what are we delivering, and are we getting to a point where we're delivering more consistently, where it's actually going up at a predictable rate rather than it's low, wait, it's high, wait, it's low, wait, it's high. So how are we at delivering value to our customers? What's the team flow, the flow velocity, the velocity of the flow? And we're measuring this with kind of, let's say, story points per iteration, although we can measure it with other ways. Then, flow distribution. What are we building? So let's say, just for the sake of argument, we have stories, enablers, and maintenance. And let's say it's all blue. We're only building stories. What does that tell you? What? All blue.
Yeah. So the question is,
what does that mean?
We may be building something else we have to care about ourselves.
Or maybe we're not building something that maybe we should build it.
I mean,
We're creating something, yes. What if it's all red? It's all enablers.
Customers are unhappy.
Yeah, we're probably not delivering enough value to our customers. Now, depending on the team, this will be different. If I have an infrastructure team, of course the composition of colors will be different than if I have a stream-aligned team. So every team, I need to know what I'm expecting and then start seeing what's the capacities I'm doing. Maintenance is another good thing. I've seen this in a lot of companies where it starts here and then it grows and grows and grows, and the point of maintenance keeps growing. What does that tell me? Yeah, I'm probably creating technical debt. That means I'm going to have to pay it up at some point. So really thinking through what's the flow distribution is another important thing. And how is it changing over time? Thinking through flow predictability. Are we predictable in the way we're working, or are we unpredictable? Are we delivering all over the place? And say if we like to say that trains need to deliver business value on a scale of 80 to 100%. So being predictable in your delivery of value is important. So how are we doing in that? Are we predictable or are we all over the map? Is the train predictable but teams are unpredictable? Are the trains predictable but the solution trains unpredictable? Is the portfolio predictable? So at every level we have to ask ourselves, are we actually predictable? Because our customers, internal and external, expect some level of predictability. Now, not predictability doesn't mean I'll tell you what I'm going to build 3 years from now. That probably contradicts agility. But if I've seen too many teams say, oh, we're agile, we can't tell you anything about what we're going to build. No, we can be really predictable in agile. Flow time. If I'm going to ask something from this train, when am I likely to see it? How long does it take us to deliver a feature on average? A feature that actually delivers value. Because one of the easiest way, and we're going to see that when we talk about outcomes, to push this down is we're going to have really, really small features that are meaningless. That's going to push the number down, but we're not going to actually deliver value to customers. So most of the time, on 25 days, we can deliver features. There are some really extreme outliers, like there are some features, not a lot, 2, 3, that take 110 days. Okay. But if I see that a lot of them are starting to move there, that means I'm not splitting them the right way. I'm not delivering value continuously. I'm not thinking about my customers enough. So really focusing on flow time is also important. Flow load, cumulative flow diagrams. If you look at the different parts of where features go through, or epics, or anything, depending on the level you're looking at, they go through things. They're nowhere, and then they're in review, and analyzing, and ready, and preparing, and implementing. And then looking at it, you can see problems like maybe I don't have anything that is ready to work on. Maybe I'm overanalyzing or underanalyzing. Maybe I'm over-implementing. And really looking at the difference shows me where my bottlenecks are. There's a clear correlation between looking at this and trying to understand where things are moving and thinking about kind of the height of this column can show me how fast I can deliver. So there's a lot of correlation between this one and this one. But I can hear this provides me more granularity to see where things stuck. Or where are we underdoing things? And we talk a lot about overdoing things. We have too much work in process, too much whip. We don't talk enough about starving parts of the process. Sometimes the problem is we're starving part of the process. And then flow efficiency. I'm not going to go into the value stream mapping because somebody else is going to talk about it, but really thinking about flow efficiency. I was working with a company a while back, and they were really good at DevOps. So they said that everything in the process we were mapping it was in minutes. 5 minutes, 3 minutes. We got one that said 10 minutes, and they were starting to huddle to talk about how can they take it down. But I said, wait, we're just mapping the current state. Keep working. And then they had one step that took 9,000 minutes. And there was a silence there, and they said, we've been improving the wrong things. Because taking it from 10 minutes to 1 minute when you have 9,000 minutes somewhere else that's waiting, because of a group that had to make a release decision in that enterprise, doesn't matter. That's where the waste is. So the fact that you could take that down from 10 minutes to 1 minute, it's not going to make a difference. Really understanding where our bottlenecks are. So we have a lot of things around flow fundamentals, and I'm going to talk about that maybe at the end of the day, but this is something that we're really focusing on right now in SAFE. What are the different things that help us improve flow, and then using these in order to elevate the problems that you found in flow. So if you saw problems in the cumulative flow diagram, think about how you're visualizing and limiting what in process. If you found a bottleneck, how do you make sure the whole system is focused on that and you're spending your time in a bottleneck? Because hours spent improving things that are not a bottleneck doesn't improve the flow. So really thinking through these 8 flow fundamentals and thinking each one of them, how can I use it to grow beyond where I am right now? And each one of them has a specific thing that can show you. If we're talking about, again, flow load, it can show you that there's excess work in a process leading to increased flow time. So what do I need to do? Here are specific flow fundamentals, and we tried matching them up. So we are distributing the slides, right? Somebody knows this. We're sending everybody the slides afterwards, right? Okay, so you can look at it there and see specifically, if you're thinking you have a problem here, these are the fundamentals we think that will prevent the remedy for you in order to help improve this. Because again, the problem is not, the focus is not measure, it's measure and grow. So we find this problem, and then what specific fundamentals working in small batches, visualizing and limiting work, working in small, which are the ones we need to focus on in order to improve the problem that we saw. And then finally, outcomes. Do our solutions actually meet the needs of our customers and businesses? We can have amazing flow, and we can have an exemplary case study of SAFE, one that can be written on in a book. But if we're not showing results that are solving the problem for our customers, it really doesn't matter. And we see this too often. Somebody will call us and say, I have a case study for you to write about SAFE. And we'll say, okay, great. What can you tell us? Well, we've launched 3 trains, we've done a portfolio, we've done this, and we're talking about, okay, but what are the results? Well, we're still evaluating that. We're not sure yet what the results are. Well, then it's not interesting. Oh, but we have a case study for you on SAFE. But SAFE isn't the goal. And people are surprised. They think they'll come to us and we'll say, well, the whole goal is to do SAFE. No, SAFE is a tool to achieve business agility. If you're not achieving the outcomes, if you don't have happier customers, if you're not building the things they want, all of it doesn't matter. And you need to find your own KPIs. And you need to create a feedback loop. So as we're defining for each one of our strategic themes, what are we trying to do as far as the strategy of the company? How do we build value stream KPIs that match those so that as we're delivering iteratively, we can ask ourselves, are we making progress on those key results? Are we making results on those KPIs? And this could be, we want to address a new market. This could be, we want to, we were just talking about it over break, we want to be a greener company. What does that mean for, this is a strategy for the company, great. What does that mean for my team? Right now we're like, oh, there's somebody up there who will worry about that. No, every team can worry about that. If we think about the right key results and the right KPIs that will help me see, is what I'm producing more green, using less waste, harming the environment less. So how do we create a connection between what the teams are building and the trains are building and the strategy of the company? And again, it really depends on what you're trying to do. This could be we want to have more customers, or we're acquiring a lot of customers, but they're actually not staying on the platform. It could be that we're trying to have a bigger conversions funnel. It could be that we're trying to get a better net promoter score. It could be that we're trying to open a new business. It could be that we're trying to sell more money. So we're trying to sell more units, or we're trying to open a new demographic. And if we're not connecting this, that means there's somebody at the top who's worried about a business problem, and that there's somebody at the bottom who's writing code for an unknown reason. And that's a problem. We need everybody in the company to know what we're working towards and really connecting those two. And if we're not focused on that, and we're only focused on competencies, are we doing SAFE well, but flow isn't thought of, then we're missing an opportunity. And if we're focusing on flow, but we're not creating the right KPIs and we're not focusing on creating the results for our business, then we're also missing a point. When the pandemic hit, McKinsey ran a survey about how well were businesses who were already agile performing to respond to COVID. And the reason they asked people who were already agile before COVID is because when the problem hits, when I'm under attack, now saying, oh, well, now another competitor is taking away my business. Now I'll start thinking about agility is too late. And so those who were already agile when the crisis hit, when the problem hit them, were a lot more likely to get customer satisfaction, employee engagement, operational performance. And that's why we do it. We do it to get the actual results, the actual business results, internal and external. And only by doing that, only by measuring both the competencies, because we have to start somewhere, the flow, and the output, asking ourselves, are we actually creating the right solutions? Only that way can we actually have satisfied customers. Going to where I started, that's what we have to do. It's not about safe. It's not about agile. It's not about any of that. It's about having customers really happy with what we're building for them. Then, if we can do this repeatedly, in the right way, in the right time, while not killing our own people, that's why employee satisfaction was also there, then we can say that we've actually achieved business agility. Then we can say that we're measuring the right things and that we're growing in the right direction. So, hopefully that was useful, and maybe some people have questions. You have a microphone right there.
Yes, so I had that question. You just talked about, in your last word, about internal employee satisfaction.
Absolutely.
So I understood that there's two types of measurement, one about competency, okay, company competency, and flow, which is more about the purpose of the company, the final value, I guess.
Output. That's the
output.
That's
Output,
yeah.
Could you say, so my question is, could we say that somehow for some company, maybe all of them, also the employee satisfaction is somehow the final value, and is that, can you measure everything about it in the competency measurement, or is there some other kind of measurement, not only about satisfaction, but the whole employee career, how you make them great in your company, how do you make them evolve and be good?
So I think, of course, you can measure some of it in the competency side, but I think some of it goes to the KPIs. And as a company, it's our responsibility to make sure that part of what we're measuring is, are people happy? Yeah. And it's really interesting. A few years back, a friend of mine he did an experiment. He had a team that was doing Scrum and had the regular burn down chart. He replaced that. He said, we're not going to do that anymore. And he replaced it with every day people reported on how happy they were. And it was a better correlation to how likely they were to actually achieve their goals. Because when people were happy and motivated and doing things, they actually achieved their goal. But when they weren't, they ended up, we got too many things and we're not really successful. They ended up not doing this. So I think it is a super important metrics that I don't think people are spending enough time on. As I talk about leadership specifically, we talk about the importance of working with people and growing people and giving people the right environment to flourish in. So I talked about leadership, and I think leadership as a whole is an underappreciated and under-focused things in the Agile community. So that's why I spent some time on that specific competency, because I think it's super critical. The right leaders build the right communities and build the right, and are thinking constantly about how do I make people happy? And not happy like, well, you're happy, you could just go home. No, I really feel valued. I really feel like I matter. I think that's an important leadership skill. So it's somewhat in the competency, I think somewhat in the outcomes that you need to measure. But I do think that saying that's the most important thing, I don't know, because again, there is still the customers that we're trying to create something for. So if we have a company and you're building something, doing that well should be an important part of what you're doing. It just can't be just about people being happy, because people can be happy about doing anything. But we're still a bank. We're still an insurance company. So how am I happy while delivering the best thing for my customers? I think you have to focus on both. Any more questions? We have time.
How do you start to install in a company a culture of measurement? Some tips.
So, I think, again, I'm going back there all the time because I think that's the beginning to a lot of things. It's the leadership. So if you want to install a culture of measurement, it starts by how do you use measurement. So if we see that you're using measurement to punish us, you'll never get good measurements, and we don't want to have a culture of measurement because you're using it to punish. If, on the other hand, a lot of those assessments that we have in SAFE, we use them as self-assessment. We tell the team, assess yourself and figure out how to grow. Well, that's great. So the more of those come organically from a level, have a team assess itself, have a train assess itself, have a portfolio assess itself, have leaders assess themselves, and have others assess them, the more likely that people will actually want to have a measurement-based culture, the more it's, I'm going, and I've been in those places, I'm going to send you as our consultant to go and assess everybody else's, the less likely I'm going to build that color culture. Sending somebody to assess someone is not the right way. It's, as always, why? Why should I care about this? Well, are you happy with the way things are going right now in the team? Not really. Do you want to make them better? Yeah. What if we offered you something where you can run yourself through a session to understand where are some of the problems, and then we'll provide you with some help on how you can improve them? Oh, well, that sounds great. The problem is that in most places that I've seen, the difference between that and the type where leadership uses it for the wrong things is usually short. Because you assess yourself and you're like, oh, we're lacking in something and we can improve. And then his team measures and says, we're lacking something else. And then her team will measure itself, we're lacking something. And then I'll come and say, oh, her team is the best, your team's, and I've lost everything. That's not the point. So if you want to build that kind of thing, it's important to train the leaders that the culture of measurement is built to help people improve, measure and grow, not measure and compare. And it's really hard. Because most companies, for them, it's measure and compare. I'm doing not really well on LPM. Okay, how is everybody else doing? They're also doing bad. So no, I don't care. What? Yeah, I look at all my industry and everybody's doing not well on LPM. I don't need to do better. That's wrong approach, but I see that too often. So if you can move from measure and compare to measure and grow, that's how you start building that culture. And when and this shows in the and just like everything else in leadership, it shows when a team is assessing themselves badly, and instead of a manager coming in and say, wow, you're bad, saying, how can we help? So a lot of it is on leadership. I think that, again, if there's one quantity in all of this that people, and I know we're going to talk about leadership later, but one quantity that I think people underestimate extremely in Agile, it's leadership. And the reason was, and I think we all remember this from the early days of Agile, leaders were pushed to the side. The original intention on Agile was we don't need leaders. Pigs and chickens, we don't need leaders in the room. That's still hurting us. That's still creating that bad thing. So that's my view on this. You have a question in the back.
Yes, I have a question about the organization in your projects, and what would be your answer for example, for a client that wants to optimize his organization by having, like you said, someone like be Scrum Master and developer, and have like a lot of roles for the same person?
So again, I would use, and I think Flow is great on that, to show are we actually achieving the right solutions that we want. There was an exercise we used to run years ago, and I really like running it with executives, that you get them to run an iteration. It's about stupid things. They have to measure the room, they have to say how tall everybody in the room is, but then they have to validate the results with a product owner. And we have product owner in the room, but we intentionally have one product owner for like 4 teams. So at some point in the exercise, they realize, wait, we have to get to the product owner to approve this. Then they all get to the product owner, they all fail, and everybody's getting out of this exercise angry. and says, well, if we had a product owner for every team, we'd be successful. And then there's a moment when it sinks, and they never ask, why do we need to have a product owner for every team? Because they just saw what it does. So it's a lot of showing them the way it's creating a bottleneck in the flow. The fact that we have a Scrum Master for every team. Or showing them that our teams are not improving well enough. So yes, you can create point optimization. But teaching leaders about system thinking is so crucial. So I'm spending the time working with leaders on a lot of those things. How do we think beyond my specific problem and think beyond that? The transformation I talked about in aerospace earlier, the problem there was that everybody had their project, and the only consideration was, how do I make my project successful? Now, there were a lot of things that could have done repeated, that could have been used to create a common architecture, but nobody had an interest, because it would make my project longer. Even if it helps other people's projects, I don't care. So the whole point of the transformation was getting leaders to the point where we're saying every single project, making every single project the best is hurting your company, as opposed to saying, no, we need to make the overall better. So we spend a lot of time, sometimes it's in fun exercises, sometimes it's really talking through the concept of system thinking, because that's what happens when you put one Scrum Master on 5 teams, or you have a 10% Scrum Master. You're not growing somewhere. And I like using data with this. We're looking at our team, we're saying the team has improved from here to here. That other team has improved from here to here. What's the difference? That one has a full-time Scrum Master, that one doesn't. And if I can show that metrics, that's a great way to get leadership on board, because I can actually show them that there is results by doing that. And honestly, if I can show that, I don't know what to do with the Scrum Masters, even if I have them. Or it's not really the right solution for the current problem. And then I shouldn't be doing it. Because again, the goal isn't to have Scrum Masters, isn't to do Scrum, isn't to do safe. Are we seeing improvements in results? So as long as we have that, we're good.
Yeah, sorry, a long question.
I think
That's a good one. Okay. There's always that subject when we are transforming, going to Agile, about management and performance review about employees. So my question is, would you say, according to your experience, is it a good thing or not to connect those KPIs or those measurements to individual performance review of the employees?
It's a good question. I think in some way, yes. So getting to a point where people are measured more on the success of the company rather than what I'm doing right now, that has to be part of the measurement. But I will say that as a whole, it has been my experience that with most customers that are making the journey to Agile, the entire way you're doing employee assessment needs to be rethought. In a lot of companies, they're rating people on a curve. If you have 20,000 people, probably they're on a curve, just to be fair. But in a specific Agile team, the chance that on every team, everybody's on a curve is 0 chance. That doesn't work. So we have to spend a lot of time changing how people are measured, changing how often they're measured. Not once a year, I'm going to tell you that you're bad and then I might fire you. And as part of that, I really do think that you have to quantify that and tie that to incentives of how well we're doing. Because saying, I'm really well, even if my train's failing, it could be locally true for a day, but it's not overall true. So yes, I do think that part of the things that needs to go into and performance evaluation in an Agile world is the actual outcomes that we're achieving. And by the way, not did I write stories? Are we achieving the results as a company? That makes me think beyond my role and think what the strategy is, because part of my pay is tied to the success of the company on its strategy. So I'm going to say, no, I'm not going to build this feature. What do you mean? It was in the backlog. How is that advancing our strategy? Why do you care? Because I get paid on it. So I think it is critical as part of this, but we can talk about it later. Rethinking compensation, rethinking evaluation is a whole big topic that almost every company has to go through in the Agile journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup Inbar. Alors pour la suite, vous avez 3 minutes de pause. On est à peu près là. Je vois que les questions étaient nombreuses. Alors, soit vous restez ici pour la suite avec Pierre qui va vous faire une présentation sur le value stream mapping, retour d'expérience, soit vous allez juste à l'angle comme tout à l'heure pour rencontrer Khadija et Anaïs sur comment est-ce qu'on prend en compte l'expérience utilisateur avec Kano. Voilà, donc très intéressant aussi. Donc ça vous laisse à peu près une petite minute pour faire votre choix et on se retrouve un petit peu plus tard.